Insight. The first ever series to analyze the unexplored aspects and issues of Carnatic music. Samagana lolane sada shiva shankarane daya karane jaya 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 samagana lolane sada shiva. Soma Sundara Chandrasekhara Soma Sundara Chandrasekhara Soma Skanda Shrita Jana Shubhakara Soma Skanda Shrita Jana Shubhakara Samagana lolane sada shiva shankarane daya karane jaya samagana lolane kamare purare kalpaka nagikanath karunai shivai kamare purare kalpaka nagikanath karunai shivai Shri Mahadeva Shri Mahadeva Deva Kapalil Dina Ramadasal Thorum Jatadara Samagana lolane sada Shiva Shankarane daya karane jaya samagana lolane sada Shiva. Dear Rasikas, welcome to the 11th episode of our Insight series. I am very happy to see you all, and I hope you would have enjoyed the previous 10 episodes, which were actually a general outline of Carnatic music, focusing on its characteristics, raga aspects, tala, composition, the role of accompaniment, and so on. You may refer to the previous episodes for further information about all this. From now on, I'll be going on in a more detailed manner about the different aspects of Carnatic music. In fact, many of our viewers have written to us asking to cover specific topics, which I'll be doing in my subsequent sessions. Here, we had already discussed about Carnatic music and its salient features. For the benefit of those learning Carnatic music, I thought I will share a few aspects as to why we really need to learn Carnatic music. What are the benefits of it? Well, it has been really proven that learning music itself can have a very, very great impact on our holistic development. And that is why we see that it has been an age-old practice, especially among our South Indians as well as North Indians in India, to send children to learn classical music. Of course, in the initial stages, the child may not be able to even decipher what it is all about, but compulsorily it will be attending classes every week, and slowly it starts gaining some kind of an interest in the whole system. First of all, learning music itself can generate a lot of happiness and peace of mind. This I've mentioned earlier also. In children, you see especially that when they're singing together as a group, they feel so very, very happy. The joy that music radiates in them is the first thing or the most important thing for the reason why one should learn music at all. This does not apply only to children here. I would say that music is something you can really learn at any point of your life. Here I would like to add that learning dance, for example, after the age of 60 is quite difficult because your body will not cooperate. But then singing is something which is very much inherent in all of us, and we can always catch up to it at any point of our time. Coming to Carnatic music, the first advantage I would say is that it develops a sense of concentration in us. Now, what do I mean by this? What is it all about? Actually, here again, this is also done something very, very subconsciously by the student. For example, let's take a note, and perfecting this note throughout one's lifetime itself is a method of concentration. For example, let me take the sa itself. Sa. What I am doing here actually is trying to concentrate on the sound of sa and see how best I can perfect it. Let's take another note, ga, and see. I'll try to render it sort of a bit imperfect and then try to be a bit perfect. See the difference here. The note is ga, that is a note. So suppose I'm singing ga, actually I'm not able to perfect it. And this also happens in many of the students' learning process where they are really not able to attain perfection of the note in the first instance, and it takes a lot of practice in fact. Especially you would see that this happens in the case of sa and ri, because we are taking Mayamalagala as the scale here. This problem many of the teachers would have faced, where you see that sa, ri. The space between sa and ri is very, very subtle. So it's like sa, ri, Shuddha Rishabha. Most often when the children start singing, they will sing like sa, ri. Or same applies to pa and dha, where the Shuddha Daivata is very near to the pa. So like pa, dha, that is the place. But most often in the beginning you would see they would sing like pa, da. Then you have to tell them konja tooki pudi, that is try to raise it a bit and sing. But here again music, it's very, very difficult in the sense that it's an abstract medium. It's not a concrete medium. Like if you say, for example, there are 10 apples and you give 2 to somebody and ask them how many are more left, you can say 8 because you're visually able to see there are 10 apples and 2 have been taken away. But here the problem is that you have to really assess it in the mind. So when I say pa, dha, sometimes the child may say pa, da, then you say try to decrease a bit. So it's a trial and error method, you know, and where through a lot of concentration you are able to attain the perfection in the pitch. So this, what I was talking about, concentration in music is something which also applies to other fields. This kind of concentration that you develop in music gets applied at a larger level to other fields also. And this concentration, you would have seen, becomes much, much intense in a great stalwart, especially when you see that when they are singing a straight Gandhara or a straight Shadja on the Tara Shadja, you can feel that the music is filling the whole atmosphere. That means they are actually trying to attain that 100% perfection. Of course, 100% perfection is never possible as far as music is concerned. And I also remember one of my friends saying that if at all one is able to achieve 100% perfection in singing that sa, that day I will give up my music itself. So actually what it means is that it is never possible to attain that, but then every artist aspires or strives towards attaining that perfection. And it doesn't happen every day actually. Even when you sit to practice, you see that some days you are able to align beautifully to the Shruti and you feel a sense of happiness. Some days you feel that whatever said and done, something was missing and you are not able to really tune in that perfectly. It's not that you are being discordant, it's just that you are not being able to perfect the note. And in Kacheri also, some days you feel that when the tambura is being played, somehow you are totally becoming one with the Shruti. Sometimes you feel that things are just in bits and pieces and somehow things are not falling in place. So this is a lifelong pursuit of concentration that you develop through the medium of swaras. This is one thing. The second thing is the sensitivity to sound, which I was mentioning here also. Same thing applies. For example, when I say sa ri ri ga ma pa dha ni sa, so you are developing some kind of a sensitivity to the sound. In fact, yesterday I was teaching a beginner, and at that time when I started the Sarali, the mother was telling me, why don't you record the Sarali verse and give it so that she can sing along. Well, sing along does not work that perfectly here, because while singing along you may be able to sing to the tune, but then when you start singing by yourself, you understand that you are not able to perfect the note. So actually the imagery of the note is what you have to form in your mind through that whole process. That is very important, because you would also have seen that in bhajanas and group singing, when everybody sings together, it seems like everything is in perfect unison and perfect kind of a pitch. But when each of them sing separately, you will know that many things are not falling in place. So that sensitivity to sound is something which we have to strive for throughout our life. The next thing is the memory skill. Our music is extremely beautiful in the sense that it has got a science behind it as well as an art. Even if you take, for example, simply the Sarali Varsa, it starts with Sarigama Padanisa, Sanidapa Magarisa, and then slowly, even there you have to be concentrated, you have to have a perfect memory as to which will come after what. For example, the first will be like Sarigama Padanisa, Sanidapa Magarisa. The next one goes to the note of Rishabha. The next after Gandhara. The next Madhyama. So to keep in mind all this and how you will sing. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa sa ni da pa ma ga ri sa ri ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga ri sa ri ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga ri sa ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga ri sa. Like this it keeps going on. So when you are asked to sing the Sarali, you have to remember in the mind the order of the items. This also applies to the Janta Varsa, the Dhatu Varsa and the Alankaras. And of course, when you go to the compositional level, the memory skill has to be honed to a different level, in the sense that in a composition, for example, a Kriti or a Varnam, you have the melody part, you have the Tala, you have the lyrics, then you have the Sangatis, and then the nuances. So there, the mind has to keep everything intact, in the sense that everything has to fall in place perfectly. So you have to remember what is the tune in which the composition is there, and the lyrics, the sahitya, and then everything has to fall perfectly in place in the tala. So there are different things combining together in terms of the honing of memory skills when it comes to a composition. And at the Manodharma, this kind of memory becomes much more refined, in the sense that you assimilate many things by a process of listening, by a process of learning, and then after that, at that point of time, you have to really motivate yourself, you have to really instill that memory, and then you have to sing on the spot all that you have heard, but yet it has to sound fresh. So that is a very challenging task of the memory, where many things are there in the brain and you have to pick and choose as to what you would like to present as part of the concept. Then the most simple thing, of course, is it improves the quality of breathing. This again is a very, very unique aspect of our vocal music, where you would see that music is nothing but, the singing process is nothing but inhaling of the air and then exhaling of the air. So what happens is that we also practice, when the child starts singing, you would have seen that this inhaling is not done in a very refined manner. So most of the time, yesterday also I was mentioning to my student, where they are not able to continuously sing, then what happens? They pause in between, take a break and start the next talam. So that is not correct, first thing. Or sometimes what you do is you swallow some swaras or words because of the lack of breath. So this exercise of developing breathing skills is also very, very important. And actually you are doing a natural process. For example, just you take the example of pa, for example. You are breathing in as much as possible and then trying to leave out the pa. So the more you are able to hold your breath, the pa comes out very beautifully, in the sense pa. Now if I don't hold my breath properly there and start doing the pa, then it becomes like pa, it will become like that. So this art of breathing itself gets cultivated through the medium of vocal music. In flute also we see that it's only the inhaling and exhaling of the breath. So all these kinds of vocal music and some of the instruments actually help us in developing our breathing skills. This also applies to nadaswaram, saxophone and clarinet also, for example, where the breath becomes the important or the vital tool for the execution of the music. The next thing which comes is discipline in movement, in the sense that first thing, the beautiful posture in which we sit and sing. Nicely we squat on the floor, that gives a nice feel, and after that you're sitting in a very disciplined manner. So that sitting itself becomes a kind of a discipline for the child, where that positioning, the movement of the hand, the facial gestures, everything gets disciplined through the medium of music. The most important another thing which is vital to our Carnatic music is the pattern recognition. This comes right from the Sarali Janta. It's very, very interesting to see how different patterns are combined actually to form the different varieties of notes. For example, if you take the Sarali Varsa, it is just the movement of notes in a straight order like we did. Sari, 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 gama, pa, da, ni, sa, sari, ga, sari, ga, sari. Like that it keeps going on. In Janta Varsa, you see that pairing of notes happens and there's a regular pattern in the pairing. For example, if you take the third Janta Swara, sa, sa, ri, sa, sa, ri, sa, ri, sa, sa, ri, ri, ga, ga, ma, ma, ri, ri, ga, ri, ri, ga, ri, ga, ri, ri, ga, ga, ma, ma, pa, pa. So what is the pattern happening here? 1 1 2 1 1 2 1 2 1 1 2 2 3 3 4 4 2 2 3 2 2 3 2 3 2 2 3 3 4 4 5 5 3 3 4 3 3 4 3 4 3 3 4 4 5 5 6 6. So this is how the pattern is developing here in the third one. If we take another pattern, for example, sa sa ri ri ga ga ri ri sa sa ri ri ga ga ma ma, which translates to 1 1 2 2 3 3 2 2 1 1 2 2 3 3 4 4. That is one pattern. Or if you have sa sa ri ri ga ga sa sa ri ri ga ga ma ma 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 1 2 2 3 3 4 4. So everything is a pattern here. So the child also learns that different kinds of patterns can be formed through the medium of music. In fact, I also encourage my students not to stop with this, and then I ask them to create their own patterns. And that becomes a very delightful experience, because this is not the end all, because there are only a few patterns which are shown as examples to us, but we can create innumerable patterns with this particular structure. And so when the child is asked to create his own patterns and sing it also, there's a double-fold happiness that you have created something on your own and you're also singing. So this kind of pattern recognition, pattern creation is also done through the medium of music. Then we come to the Saptatala Alankaras. Here what is the idea behind is also to introduce the 7 talas to the child, but then you also understand how through the medium of your fingers you are able to show the different talas. So there is a lot of concentration required in terms of putting the tala while you are singing the different patterns of swaras. On a larger level, we see that group activity, music as a group activity, brings in a lot of happiness among children. When you see the congregational singing in different schools as part of their programs, or when you see in a bhajan a number of children singing together, you see that this music actually develops a sense of unity among them. It also generates a lot of happiness among them. And most importantly, unlike many other mediums of art, here this happiness is also transmitted to the listener. So people who are sitting and listening to their music also get a sense of that joy which is being perpetuated by the students. And finally, I would like to share that all the learning of music need not be always targeted towards performance. Like you saw here, that music has got so many benefits. So it's not necessary that everybody who learns music has to finally become a performer. I am reminded of a cartoon which I saw some years back, where one person is asking the other, "Why are you learning music? Is it to perform somewhere?" Then the other person replies, "No." Then again he asks, "Why are you learning music? Is it to teach somebody?" Then the other person says, "No." Then he finally asks him, "Then why are you learning music?" Then that other person says, "I am learning music because I just love music." So loving music itself can be a reason for you to learn music. And also practically I would like to share one of my senior student, very senior doctor in a hospital who's been learning music for about more than 10 years now. When he came to me, he clearly said that I have no idea or no absolute ambition to perform on stage or to sing for somebody. Why I'm coming to learn music is for my own self, for my own happiness. And he's been doing it joyously, very faithfully rather, I would say, for the past 10 years. So that is one example I wanted to share. And then there's another very senior lady friend of mine who has got a group of old ladies to whom she teaches music every week. These old ladies, it's very, in fact, she used to very jovially tell me, she's about 70-year-old. She says, "My students are all much older than me. I'm the youngest here." So the students are all 75 plus 80-year-old ladies. But getting them all together and making them sing itself becomes a very joyous experience for the teacher here. Then finally, of course, I would also like to share that during one of my music appreciation programs, I had a very senior person coming, and after listening to my lectures, he said that I'm really feeling motivated to learn music. It's not for anybody, just for my sake, and he started learning Veena at the age of 70. So now you may ask whether he'll be able to perfect the skills or not. It doesn't matter at all. He's learning music there for his own happiness. So through this, I wanted to convey the fact that not everybody who learns music can become a great performer. You can be a great listener too, and you can also learn music for your own happiness and peace of mind. With this, we come to the end of this episode. I hope you found it interesting and also thought-provoking. If you have any questions, feedback, or any specific topics which you would like me to discuss, please do email or WhatsApp to me. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.